It is interesting to see the evolution of the agenda, isn't it? A couple of years ago, we were talking a lot of theory, a lot of small scale, and now to see some of the things in action over the last year or so, it's really encouraging to see that. So, right after this panel, we're going to have networking time. Right now, we're going to take one more panel and hear from updates from our government partners who have been long in the trenches with us in different capacities, so we're really pleased to get these last updates, right? Right. Okay, so we're going to start off. Who are we going to start off with? We're going to start off with, I think, Kate. Yeah, and yeah, just come on up and you do the aquatic farming update, right? All right, well, welcome to the podium. Red is off, so you are ready to go.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kate Dufault. I am the program manager of the Aquatic Farm Leasing Program within the Alaska Department of Natural Resources. And today I will be providing a brief update on the program. And if you're not familiar with us, we process applications for aquatic farm leases on state-owned tidelands. Leases are issued for a period of 10 years, and the lease from DNR is the first authorization that you will obtain. And after you have a lease, you will need to obtain permits from other state and federal agencies. So we currently administer 77 aquatic farm site leases. We are currently in the open application period, which is every year from January 1st through April 30th. We have a joint agency application form, and that is reviewed by us at DNR, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation. So I'm going to do a quick overview of the lease application process. Once you submit an application, we will review it for completeness. When it's been deemed complete, we will send it for a 20-day agency review period, where it is sent to other state, federal, and local agencies for their review. After the agency review, we then write a preliminary decision on whether we intend to issue the lease. And that preliminary decision is then sent for a 30-day public comment period, where we solicit comments from agencies, the public, native entities, and other stakeholders. When the public comment period ends, we then respond to all of the comments in a final decision, which is the final determination on whether we intend to issue the lease. The final decision is sent to the applicant and anyone who submitted a comment during the public comment period. And there is a 20-day appeal period of all the final decisions. If no appeals are received, we will then request the lease deliverables from the applicant, which includes the annual fee, the security bond, a copy of the commercial liability insurance, and the signed lease agreement. And after the final decision is issued, that lease will need to start within 1 year. And for those of you who already have a lease, amendment applications can be submitted during any time of the year. That does not have to be during the open application period. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Okay. So leases are located across the state. About 50% are located in Southeast, 34% are located in South Central, and 16% are located in the westward region, which we classify as Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula. There are currently 25 authorized kelp farms for a total acreage of 669 acres. For shellfish farms, there are 44 currently authorized for a total of 386 acres. And for combination farms cultivating both shellfish and kelp, there are currently 8 authorized for a total acreage of 184. And all of that adds up to a total statewide authorized acreage of approximately 1,240 acres. So next, I'm going to be going over the total sales from 2022. The annual reports from farms are submitted to Fish and Game every January, so we don't have the numbers quite compiled yet for 2023. The overall sales, which includes oysters, mussels, and kelp from 2022, were $1,938,709, which was slightly up from 2021 by about 2.5%. And as you can see from this graph, over time, with the number of leases that have been authorized, as that increases, the annual sales have increased as well. We had a slight dip due to COVID, but those sales have picked back up. And our program is made up of 1 manager and 3 staff. I currently work alongside Brent Reynolds and Karen Coogan, and we have a vacant position that we will be filling next week, so we're excited to have a full team again. And if you're thinking about applying for a lease, I would strongly encourage folks to have a pre-application meeting with someone from our program. That can be as simple as a phone call, or you're welcome to set up a meeting with us in our office in the Atwood building, just a few blocks away. And you can find additional information, links to other helpful websites, forms such as the application on our website. And that's everything for me. Thank you.
All right, you ready? Okay, next up, Emily Marr with the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development.
thanks for
The whole thing. So,
awesome. Great. Hi, everyone. My name's Emma. I do work for USDA Rural Development, and I'm really happy to be here. I've been in this role as a community planner for 1 year, and one of my first job assignments was to go to this conference last year. So it's really great to see some familiar faces. And no, not one of the updates is now that I have purple hair. I kind of regret putting that picture blonde version of me back in the day, but I do want to share some rural development updates just on some of our grant programs that we have that are recurring, that are annual, that have been helpful and used in the mariculture industry here in Alaska. So I'm going to mention about those briefly and then talk a little bit on the next slide, if I can get to it. Yeah, just about some of our other USDA partners in the state. And again, USDA believes mariculture is agriculture, and it's very interested in continuing to understand how our mission can support mariculture here in Alaska and understand those barriers as well. So the first grant I just wanted to share with you, we're looking again for more applicants to this grant, but is the Value Added Producer Grant. And Barnacle Foods said that I could share that they've been a great applicant for this grant, but this grant targets those farmers out there that would like to create a product or a new product with what they're growing. So not to use Barnacle Foods as an example, but if I just make one on the spot, if you're a kelp producer and you think that your kelp would make a great canned cocktail of some type, like the kelp juices, could produce a good tonic, you could apply to our planning grant, which is $75K max, and try to get a professional feasibility study on that. And then once you have a feasibility study, or you'd like to develop that product further or rent a kitchen space, then you can go to the working capital grant, and that covers things like containers, labor, and other things to develop that product. So this is a great opportunity. We'd love to talk to you more about it. I'll be here all day tomorrow over by the Farm Service Agency to talk about our Value Added Producer Grant. But this is one opportunity that is annual, and applications are coming up due April 11th. And then I'd like to also talk about the Rural Business Development Grant. So applicants for this grant would be city governments, public entities, tribes, or nonprofits in a community that are looking to fund feasibility studies or ways to help existing agricultural businesses in their communities. So this is something that has been used by the mariculture industry. For example, it was used to buy a kelp dryer and support several different businesses in using it. So this is one that we'd love to see more applications for or talk more about with you. I'm here, and I'm happy to connect you with our business programs, but this is certainly a grant that comes up annually and is an opportunity to explore building business opportunities in rural communities. And then we've discussed several times at this conference the barrier with energy, renewable energy, and processing different products. And so our Rural Energy for America program grant is an opportunity to really discuss which ways you can look at your business model and what's happening and invest in some renewable energy. So this grant actually will cover maybe you want to explore a biomass system to fund, provide energy for your system. This is the grant that helps you, and Dan Smith is our energy coordinator for the state and is really helpful in exploring those ideas and how this grant could possibly help your business or your community. And then finally, USDA Rural Development is continuing to partner with Southeast Conference, other entities through SAS, and, understanding that the facility aspect and processing facilities are really crucial to the next step. And so, we've been involved with the Prince of Wales site and continue to have those discussions. And that's very much my mentor, Keith Perkins, that's been involved with that. So just wanted to share, USDA again is exploring ways that this new industry can, we can support it and with our different authorities. So we do have folks from Natural Resource and Conservation Service in the corner. We have Braden and Emily, who are conservation planners and work in the field. And Food and Nutrition Service has also come up to Alaska. They don't have an office here, but if you're, ever have thoughts about kelp might be something good to feed in our schools, they like to talk to you, and I'm happy to connect you with some contacts with the Food and Nutrition Service. And again, Farm Service Agency is here with a booth today. That's Chris in the back. I'll be back there with him a little bit with some of my cards, but he handed me a great resource called the Reimbursement Transportation Cost Payment Program, and that's focused on the cost of transport for agricultural commodities. So I think we're all exploring and learning here and hoping to help reduce some of the barriers to entering the industry. So thanks.
Thank you, Emma. Michelle?
5 minutes.
Perfect. Michelle Morris with Alaska Department of Fish and Game is going to give us an update on the aquatic farming. Welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Morris. I'm the permit coordinator for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. So many of you have talked about wearing multiple hats. I got one position, but two hats. So half my position is, and the only fish and game staff dedicated to processing all permits related to aquatic farming. And then the other half of my position is for processing aquatic resource permits, which is for marine collections and propagated activities for research or educational purposes. So I kind of feel like I've spoken to most of you here in this room, either in one capacity or another. Today I'm going to quickly give you a few updates and some preliminary aquatic farming numbers for 2023 and the current status of kelp farming. So while the Invertebrate Enhancement Bill passed in 2022, regulations are still in development with law and have not yet been finalized, but we're hoping that by this summer that'll be ready to roll out and go. The number of research permits issued for studies related to mariculture is definitely on the rise. I did a count this morning, and there was approximately 52 or 30% of the aquatic resource permits issued in 2023 contained some sort of aspect related to mariculture. And then the two pie charts I have right here show the current number of aquatic farm permits on the top and the total acres permitted by ADF&G on the bottom. Not all operations require a DNR lease, but all operations require a fish and game operation permit, so fish and game's numbers will always be greater than those presented by DNR. The number of aquatic farm operations continues to grow and even out between the different types of farms at 27 for each grouping, and the number of hatchery permits doubled last year from 6 to 12. And then the total number of acres continues to shift over half for aquatic plant only, and this operation permit data is available live on the Fish and Game website. The 2023 annual report data is still coming in, so here's a very preliminary look at the numbers of aquatic farms and hatcheries that reported to be actively farming by either receiving stock, having inventory, but no sales in that light green portion of the bar. And then if they had sales, that's the dark green portion, having no activity in orange or are yet unknown yet because no annual report has been received in the yellow. The left graph is what I have so far for 2023, and that right graph is the 2022 annual report data. So there's still just over 10% of the 2023 annual reports are missing, indicated by that yellow section. But the biggest takeaway I see from this comparison is that the number of operations that have reported sales equal last year's, even though I'm still missing some reports. So I expect the number of operations without activity or sales will go up as this trickles in, hopefully soon. And then just a little status on kelp farming, a little bit insight of what I've seen so far because of those 2023 annual reports. So first of all, the first application for a kelp farm was in 2016. Since then, there's been 67 applications for the culture of aquatic plants. 27 of those permits are currently issued, However, 4 have already closed by the permit holder, and 3 of that happened in the last year. When receiving annual report data, I noticed a few of the farms reported not planting this fall because there is no market or no steady buyers for kelp. At the end of 2022, 10 farms had seeded lines outplanted for that 2022-23 growing season, while this winter, so far, only 8 farms have reported having lines outplanted. And then the information I've received from hatcheries so far, they've only reported distributing about 3/4 of the amount of seeded line this winter compared to the previous year. Harvest and sale of kelp in 2023 is also currently showing to be down about 56% from the previous year. This could change a little bit as more reports come in, but I expect it'll still be less than last year. So I want to say thanks, and it's been great meeting everybody for farmers and research and other interested folks over the past couple of days. So come out and say hi, reach out to me. I've already had a couple people come up with some project ideas. So if you don't know who I am and you want to email me, I'm Michelle Morris 2 at alaska.gov, because otherwise you're talking to a dental hygienist.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have James Currie with the Alaska Sea Grant, and he's going to give us an update on the Fisheries Aquaculture Program. Big, long title, Communicating Science and Policy to Broad Audiences. So you be the broad audiences, and you be James.
I'll do my best, thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Second to last talk of the day. So congratulations, everyone, for getting this far. If you all would bear with me and dig deep, we're almost done. I know everyone felt that sense of mounting horror when we realized that the coffee had been taken away. So, but yes, my name's Jamie. I am an Alaska State Sea Grant Fellow, and I'm working for the NOAA Fisheries Alaska Region Aquaculture Program. And my mentor for my fellowship is Alicia Bishop, who is the NOAA Fisheries Regional Aquaculture Coordinator for the state of Alaska. And just basically a little thing to know about me is that I love science communication. I have a background in it, and it's just something that I really feel very passionate about and just really enjoy doing. And it has been a very exciting year for the Alaska Fisheries, for the NOAA Fisheries Alaska Region Aquaculture Program, for a variety of reasons. We have a number of projects that have come out in the last year that have been really exciting, but one of the things that I am personally most excited about is the science communication work that we're doing to sort of broaden the aquaculture program's communications output and engage with stakeholders and build public literacy about aquaculture, mariculture, literacy in Alaska. So some of these projects have included things like our accomplishments report, our outreach on aquaculture opportunity areas, some print and video products that have come out, and classroom engagement, bringing aquaculture into the classrooms around Alaska. So I don't have time to talk about all these projects, so I thought I would just talk about 3 today. And the first one that I'd like to touch on, many of you have actually seen today. Today it was released. We released our collaboration video with the Alaska Fisheries Science Center discussing a project that the Alaska Fisheries Science Center is doing in collaboration with Alaska Ocean Farms. This is a project headed up by Dr. Alex LaFerriere and Alf Pryor, investigating the role that kelp farms play in providing habitat to local Alaskan species. And so we went to Kodiak this year to film year 1 of this project and conduct interviews and film the science as it was being conducted, and film a kelp harvest as it was being performed. And this was just a really cool process to do, and I am hopeful that this is indicative of growing multimedia capacity in the NOAA Fisheries Alaska Region aquaculture program. So hopefully more to come on that. Another communications push that I'd like to highlight for the last year is our work on aquaculture opportunity areas. So in June of 2023, as many of you know, Alaska was chosen as the next focus for NOAA's Aquaculture Opportunity Area Initiative. And this has been accompanied by a broad push for outreach to communities, to tribal organizations, to stakeholders, And part of this, a large portion of this outreach work has been in-person work to identify data gaps and to source data that you might not necessarily find in a GIS layer that will help us to create a model of site suitability for aquaculture development in state waters. So this has been a very exciting process to kind of have this in-person engagement. Another portion of this has been our spatial planning workshop. So we conducted our first AOA spatial planning workshop earlier this week in Anchorage, and we're going to have another one in Juneau on March 26th and 27th. So if anybody in here was not at the first one, the next one will be identical to the last one. If anybody here was not at it and would like to attend the next one and, present data or just learn more about the AOA process, let your voice be heard. We would love to hear from you. We invite you to come join us in Juneau, so please reach out. We would love to hear from you. And that is not my slide. Let me see. Okay, well, never mind. The final slide that I wanted to touch on quickly was a project that we've been working on over the last few months to produce a print project for Alaska. So you probably have seen some copies of this floating around. It's the State of Alaska Aquaculture Report. And this was a collaborative process between NOAA, Alaska Sea Grant, the Alaska Department of Natural Resources, Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and of course, Alaska Mariculture Alliance and Southeast Conference to produce this sort of cohesive document that would introduce the aquaculture industry in Alaska to people who were non-experts in it, and sort of just provide a welcome to the general public into the mariculture industry. So this has been a really cool collaborative process to be involved with all these different groups and to sort of distill all of this information from various leaders in the industry into one cohesive document talking about the state of mariculture in Alaska. So I'm over time, but I'll close at that. But thank you all very much. And if anybody would like to talk about science communication or NOAA's ongoing communications work, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all.
Great. We just threw extra people up here just to fool you. Actually, Patryce is not going to give a presentation, but she's going to take questions, which we'll start with her anyway, just because we're excited about the project that we have going on with DEC, with the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, and you guys are getting out of the rat race.
Ideally, yes.
Ideally.
Yeah,
Would you just kind of describe what that project is and maybe what your role is there at the department?
Sure. Briefly, well, I'm Patryce. I'm the chief of the Environmental Health Lab here in Anchorage. And in this group, our primary role is to do shellfish testing, both the growing areas and toxin testing for mollusk and shellfish. So kelp folks, we don't actually have to work with yet, and that will probably be good if you don't have to. So with the Build Back Better grant and Robert's group, we've been fortunate to get some new technologies to try to prepare for the growth that you guys are building. We want to keep up with current technologies and be able to be the resource that we can serve you as you work so hard to grow this industry, and we want to help make it a success. And so we are implementing some new technologies, and we could get kind of geek speak if you want, but there's one of them will still use it'll get us away from using live animal testing, so that's the goal there. So you want more on that one? Or?
That's
Okay,
a good kickoff.
Yeah, you guys want to get
because
get to
we've
the
got
food.
folks that have been
Yeah.
peppering us with questions. But while you're there, I see at the top of the list. Do you foresee any development for at-home PSD tests or anything that growers could use on their own that would be recognized by anybody as authentic?
There are some tests out there currently. There's two that I'm aware of. One is currently was called the Scotia test, then it became the Neogen test, and now it's Aqua BC test. It now has a domestic access versus being just from South America, and the other is the Gillette. And as far as it becoming a go-to, I think there is uses for it. I don't know that it will become an integral part of the regulatory testing, but it could be a support item that a farmer can choose to use and gather information and help broaden the data sets that we have about what's really going on in the waters. So I think there could be some collaborative use, but I'm not sure that it would be a replacement for the regulatory aspect of
Right.
our facility, so.
Yeah, thanks. James, there's a question here for you about perhaps maybe, can you elaborate on some of the guiding principles and language that works best to communicate about mariculture to end consumers?
Oh boy.
You got the easy ones. You got the broad audience, so you asked for it.
I totally had that one coming. I'll do my best. I would say, from my perspective, one of the guiding principles is definitely simplicity. It's very easy for portions of what we do to become a bit jargony, a little bit complex, and obviously you want to remove as much jargon as you can and try to really simplify what you're doing as best as possible. Really think of it, really put yourself in a non-expert shoes and try to think of it from the perspective of, oh, if I didn't know anything at all about mariculture, what would I want to learn? That's part of it. I'd say another aspect for me has always been enthusiasm. Because people really, I find, react very well to enthusiasm. If you really love what you're doing and you radiate that, and you can kind of just show that this is something that you're really, really passionate about, and it's something that you just want to share how cool this stuff is, people will usually give you about 5 seconds to explain yourself, in my experience. So I think trying to condense that into whatever products you're making can be quite helpful. And that leads me to another one, which I would say is beauty. A lot of what we do is really beautiful. There's a lot of really beautiful stuff out there. The way oysters shine in the light, the way the kelp, waves in the water. There's so much that is just staggeringly beautiful about the work that we do, or I should say, the work that you all do. And I think that capturing that and bringing that through to audiences really just helps to catch the eye and draw people in. So I probably butchered that, but that's my 2
That's
cents.
great. That's great. So, Emmy, there's a whole list of programs that USDA offers. Curious, is there an idea or sense of how many of those programs have been accessed by the mariculture folks? It's probably a small amount. And then there's a direct question about crop insurance. Maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of different programs that haven't been touched by the mariculture industry, and we're trying to bridge that gap and have those discussions, and big part of coming here today. The crop insurance programs, I'm going to reach out to my one USDA family over here, NRCS. Were we just talking about that at the break? Thumbs up. Yeah, like sort of. So that's your answer. No, we will definitely get an answer on that. I think we were talking a little bit about kelp as being a product that can be insured as a commodity. So we'll follow up with that. But I think that's, my role with USDA Rural Development is to be somebody that reaches out to there's 29 USDA agencies. So there's a lot of different programs, a lot of different funding streams, and that's like my day-to-day job is to try to navigate some of those and answer back to any community questions. So it's like a free-for-all with my email address. So I'm emily.marr@usda.gov. So sorry, that other Emily Marr. You might get some emails, but yeah, no, there's a lot. I mean, that's a big part of USDA Rural Development's mission under the Biden administration with the Rural Partners Network. The reality is that there are so many different federal government programs to navigate, and it's not always clear, simple, plain language to talk about. So one of my roles that was created was basically the liaison for a lot of those programs. So yeah, that's my answer. But there's a lot.
And there's a lot of educating that has to be done with federal programs that have not contemplated. This is new at the scale we're trying to do it at. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around what Sean said, that seaweed was not classified as seafood. So think about that one for a little while. So if my IT folks back there can eliminate the questions we have answered, that would help me see the ones we've got piling in here. There's a question about the cost per acre on aquatic leases. compared to gas and oil leases around the state. Do we have information? Is that something in your wheelhouse?
Yeah, so I can't speak to the cost of oil and gas leases. That's not something I'm familiar with. But for aquatic farm leases, that is based on the size of your parcels. So for leases that are less than 1 acre to 30 acres, the fee is $450 per year for the first acre or partial acre, and then $125 for each additional acre or partial acre. And then we have a fee schedule that changes the base price and the additional acre price based on the size of your farm. So that fee schedule changes once you get over 30 acres, and then it increases. That information is available on our website, or feel free to reach out to one of us and we can get you that information.
Okay. There was some talk about the appeal process and the timeline in your remarks, but is there a timeline on resolving the appeals that come in?
So I think I saw a question about the review process for aquatic farm leases. So those are two separate things. I can speak to both.
Please.
So for appeals, those are not handled by our program. If you apply for a farm and the final finding is appealed by a commenter, that goes to the commissioner's office and they process that appeal and issue a decision on whether our program made the correct decision on issuing a lease or not. That can be a long process. You know, sometimes appeals can be resolved in a year, sometimes it can be a couple years. So since we're not involved with that directly, unfortunately I don't have a firm answer on that. And then speaking to the manager review process for decisions. Any of our applicants are very familiar with this. So this has been an issue, and I became the program manager a couple months ago. And before that, I worked in the program. So the review process, when it takes a long time before a manager signs off on a decision, that can be really challenging for our applicants and for the staff in our program. So this is an issue that's very near and dear to me because I have dealt with that issue as a staff person before I became the manager. So review of decisions is something I am highly prioritizing, and I hope to speed up that process by quite a bit. And we are also taking steps to reduce the number of managers that need to review a decision before it's signed. So we are working on that.
Great, thank you. Michelle, you talked about some of the applications. 27 of 67 were active. How long can applications be inactive before they get fallen off or repossessed, or what's the process there?
So this is a decision that is between DNR and Fish and Game. So the 67 applications, I did have a little breakdown in between that. So we've received 67 applications for kelp farming. 27 of them are active. 5 have been withdrawn by the applicant themselves. 29 are in some phase of the review process, and 2 have been closed by DNR because we haven't received a response in a certain amount of time. So any of the ones that are in the review process, that could be anything from us waiting for additional information from the applicant, that could be they're out for a public notice, that could be the lease has been finalized and we are waiting for the applicant to pay that initial show their bond and fee. So it could be anywhere along that timeline. The only time we would ever close an application is if we don't hear from the applicant for quite some time. And DNR has a specified process where they go through a notification process, and Kate can speak to that. But otherwise, the oldest application we have, I would say, is probably a 2018 application.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's challenging for us because we don't want to close applications, but if someone has submitted an application and we have not gotten a complete application from them and it's been sitting for years, we will take steps to close that application, and it's a 90-day process. So we will send you a letter at the 90-day mark letting you know that we are planning to close your application if we don't receive a complete document. We send you a letter at the 60-day mark, we send you another letter at the 30-day mark, and then finally at day 0 we will close your application.
And do you see any common themes as to why applications are incomplete or not acted on?
You know, I don't, because they're not responding to us typically.
Okay.
So
Yep.
it can be challenging to know why.
Fair enough, fair enough.
I'd say one of the reasons we send an application back to the applicant is lack of consistency, because there's multiple parts to the application and one part is written and the other is visual. So someone has to provide a map and then they have a written of saying the species, the number of lines, their dimensions, and then they'll submit a map, and they've changed their thoughts somewhere along the way, so they'll update the written part but not update the map. And so we'll have to send stuff back because it doesn't match up.
Okay. Kind of a two-part question, probably for both of you. As far as the farms that are in existence, how long can they hang on to a permitted farm and not do anything? And how many of the aquatic farms actually have sales?
One of the graphs I had earlier that had the bars, so it does show that I split it into two different categories because we used to only look at farms with sales, and that was probably only a third of the permits out there. But that doesn't mean that all the farms or that all the operations aren't doing anything. So I have since changed that data to be what I consider to be a farm that's actively farming. So anyone who's received stock, who has inventory, like a gooey duck farm, cannot have sales for 5 years, but it doesn't mean they're not growing product. It's a slow-growing shellfish species. So there is a DNR use requirement that Kate can talk about, but we are pretty lenient. I would say we will work with farmers. COVID happened, people couldn't start up right away. Markets went down, they couldn't make sales. So a lease is, and at least an operation permit is for 10 years. We'll do a review after 10 years. Did this person do absolutely nothing for 10 years, and in which case we would not renew it? But for most part, the department is very willing to work with any operation permit holder.
Great, thank you. So if you were one of the very first questions, they got buried and we only see the last four. But I did notice one of the questions asked about state consultation with tribes. And we don't have any policy folks up here today. That would be a great question for a lieutenant governor or somebody from the administration or legislators. So I didn't want you to think that was missed or ignored or dismissed. It is a real issue, and it comes up in every conversation for permitting. So I wanted to recognize that before we concluded. But tonight we have an exciting 2 hours of trade show, poster sessions, oyster showcase, so don't be too late for this thing because I don't think those are going to stick around very long, but a lot of great information and great opportunity to network with your friends and colleagues here. So would you please thank one more time our panel, and we will conclude for this afternoon.